Progress over perfection is very important. As a practice owner, we are doing a million things and we cannot possibly be perfect with everything we do all day, and neither is our staff.
Thank you for joining here on another video, Dr. Drake, in your very busy schedule. We really, really do enjoy having your real point of view as a business owner, not only of Genius Vets, but also of the Drake Center, and just so much wealth of knowledge. Today's probably going to be a little bit quicker of a video. Really going to turn it over to you in just a second here to go over some of the mindsets and traits that make up a successful practice owner and team. I know this is a newer kind of topic that you're tackling in some of your speaking events coming up, but it's probably one of the most important to really start covering, especially as we're getting ramped up into Q4, where maybe a lot of practices go into a slower period, and it's a really good time to start focusing on the business, on the practice ownership, management, all those great things. So would love to just turn it over to you on maybe some of the key areas in mindsets and traits that make up a successful practice owner.
Yeah, great. Hi, Sam. So great to be here. Great to chat with you guys. My goal always as a 30-year practice owner of the Drake Center and a co-founder of Genius Vets was just to share the wisdom that I've accumulated through making lots of mistakes and then doing a lot of things well, and then actually documenting those and actually putting them into thought so I can transfer some of that knowledge to my colleagues. And again, these are just my thoughts, and but I do put a lot of thought into this kind of stuff. So anyway, the most recent like talk I'm going to give, I think at WVC in this coming February, or yeah, I think it's February this year, or like what are my thoughts on the most like what are the mindset and traits needed for to be a successful practice owner or a leader in a practice. And this is like again just putting thought into what are the things that I've had to work on myself. So as we go into slower times, I think I'm a person who always is learning. I'm always pushing myself to do a little better in everything that I do as an owner, as an athlete, as a mom, whatever it is. And these are some things I think that are directly related to owning a practice, but they kind of can add good value to like just about every place in our lives. So the ones that I came up with six, and the first one, actually there's seven, sorry. The first one is optimism. And I do think that in general, anyone that chooses to be an entrepreneur, the vast majority of us are optimistic. We see the glass half full, and that's so important because we're constantly being bombarded with bad news on the economy, stresses, pressures, and you can really kind of get, sucked into this really negative vortex. So I think constantly remaining optimistic. So for me, if something really tough, like let's just say the economy of 2008 or COVID, or when all the big mega stores were opening up a long time ago, because I've been in this business a long time, first you get a little fearful and you get a little anxious. And then I always just choose to think that every kind of challenge is an opportunity for me to either do better with running my business, to learn something new, or to focus on how we're delivering service to our customers. How do they want to be served? And always, obviously, always trying to make our veterinary care better every day. So I think keeping a positive outlook on things. I do think when veterinarians start to get a little burnt out because they're not taking care of themselves, they're not creating good boundaries, they're not doing good, like smart, emotionally intelligent things in their practice, they can take a positive person and turn them into a negative person. So if you find yourself like getting sucked into that, it's really time to take a step back and refresh yourself a little bit. If you're exhausted, you can't possibly bring good energy to your office. So I think it's really important to be aware of like the aura you're giving off. Every time I'd walk in my practice, I always want to say good morning, hello to everyone, put a smile on my face, regardless of how I'm feeling, because that energy really can bring goodness to everybody for the rest of the day, including yourself. So, anyway, being optimistic. Being decisive is the second one. The ability to make decisions. We have to make decisions all day long. What kind of lab work am I going to run on this patient? How am I going to approach this difficult tumor removal? Those are some of the medical things. How am I going to deal with this staff member who's been late 3 times, in the last month? What am I going to do about choosing my next software for whatever? There are so many decisions for us to constantly be making. Some of them we need to make right away. Some of them, again, if you're set up and you have a very clear mission statement, if you have a very clear culture, if you have a very clear vision of where you're going with your business, then the answers for these things become easier. So that's some work. Check out my book, and I talk about those things quite a bit. The more clear you are in those areas, the easier decisions become to make, especially when it comes to staffing and hiring, and unfortunately, sometimes firing as well. So being able to be decisive. That doesn't mean we shouldn't pause and collect information on bigger decisions or be thoughtful and take a step back sometimes, but it does mean we do need to make decisions and then move along and know that they're not all going to be perfect and they're not all going to be right, but we need to be decisive, and our staff looks to us for us to be able to make decisions and then move on. Progress over perfection is very important as a practice owner. We are doing a million things and we cannot possibly be perfect with everything we do all day, and neither is our staff. So I always remind all my teams that you always should have the just assume the best intentions from anyone if they've made a mistake in the front desk. It's either that they didn't collect information correctly, or possibly we misunderstood what happened, or we haven't trained them properly. So we never need to get fussed up about things not being perfect. We just need to learn from the mistake and move on. And also just, we have a lot to do during the day. We cannot get stuck on really minutia details unless they're obviously very important, like drug doses and things. But, we do need to be able to get things done without being perfect all the time. Um, Compounded daily effort is basically when I was a young girl. I used to read the Wall Street Journal with my dad all the time, starting about age 8. And he used to explain to me that the eighth wonder of the world, which is not really talked about very often, is compounded daily interest. And the reason my dad explained this to me is because he pounded it into my head that you need to start saving when you're very young so that you can retire in a good state. So like my first month out of veterinary school and I got a job, I started putting away $166.67 every single month, came right out of my paycheck, and that was because that's what I added to my own personal IRA, I think is what I was using right out of when I was, 24 years old, right? And so in addition to just thinking of compounded daily interest as far as, money goes and how long it stays in your bank, is the ability to just put small efforts into many areas of our practice on a regular basis so that we don't have to look at this gigantic elephant of a problem. So let's use marketing because hey, I'm talking to Sam right now, Genius Vets. And when I talk about marketing and when David, my partner, talks about marketing, sometimes veterinarians just get like, whoa, this is so much, there's so much going on here. And I always just say, hey, just take a step back and just start taking little bites every month, devote 1 hour a month. Have a team member that's hopefully devoting more than that per month, but you yourself should just be devoting time to, does my team, are we all on the same page? Are we saying the same messaging to our clients? What are the things we should be adding to our website? Is our website fresh? Is it updated? Again, just baby small bites every single month, and you will see an effort. You will see progress and good things coming from small amounts. So, like the same thing, if you don't like the culture in your hospital, you can't change that in a day. It's going to be a thoughtful process. And I do spend a lot of times talking about that if you want to learn more about that. But the idea is just baby steps, meeting with your team once a month, say, where are we right now? Where are we going to go next and how are we going to get there? So, and understand you cannot possibly get all these things done ever at one particular time, but also that you'll be working on these things your entire career when it comes to HR, when it comes to good service, when it comes to technology, when it comes to, patient care, everything. All these things are going to change all the time. We're always going to require us to have input in them. And so again, small bits all the time will definitely, help you to reach where you're headed. Energy and drive. I personally was very driven to own my first veterinary hospital, which is why I bought it at age 27. And that was because my motivation for really good patient care and client service was like my drive. I was driven to be a veterinarian, and then I didn't know, but I was driven then to buy my first practice very young because I felt like I had a way I wanted things done and I wasn't seeing it being done that way. And I didn't feel like I had wasn't my business to tell someone else how to run their business. So I thought, hey, if you feel that strong about it, you should go do it yourself. So that's what I did. And I do think that having energy is what moves any kind of anything in the practice. And the energy really does have to come from the owner and the leadership of the practice, especially the owner. If I don't have the energy to, let's say, grow my practice and all the things that are involved in that, or change the marketing or change the culture, and I don't bring the energy, not that I have to do everything, but the energy besides moving that, that effort in the right direction does need to come from the owner. But again, you should have team members that help you move that needle, whichever direction you're trying to go into, whether it's reducing staffing costs or reducing drugs and supply costs or increasing your marketing efforts or, whatever it is. It does require energy and drive. So sometimes we get really exhausted. And again, I'm just going to pound on that again. If you get exhausted, you need to refresh yourself, take a day off. I don't care if it costs you some money. Take a day off and refresh yourself and put some thought into being healthy and bringing that energy back to the practice. Passion is obvious. We need to have passion for our patients. That's how we all started. Love animals, love science, and hopefully you love people enough that you want to really take care of them as well. But I think probably every veterinarian, and probably everyone who works for veterinarians has a passion for taking care of animals. We love them and we want to see them well cared for, and that means we need to make sure that their owners are well informed and that we partner with them to help them provide great choices for their pet. The last thing I want to talk about is something that is a lifelong practice of mine, and that's the ability to be present. So when I train young doctors, we have currently have 11 doctors at the Drake Center. And when I would train young doctors, I would say, something that's a goal of mine always is no matter how busy and how hectic and how tough the surgery was that morning, or if we have short staff or whatever, that before I would walk into exam room, I would take a deep breath. Breathing is so, so helpful for any kind of stress and energy and clearing your mind before I would walk into an exam room, because when I walk in that exam room, I want to be completely present with that owner and that pet. I also teach my staff that it will help reduce the number of bites that go on in a practice. Infectious animals, if we can truly be present and really be present with that dog or cat, we'll be able to anticipate what is going to happen mostly. And the safety goes way up too. So being present with every conversation we have with our staff, our clients, and obviously with our family and our loved ones is really important too. Stay off our phones, be present with people. And it really helps to keep your head clear, make good decisions, and also be more productive as an owner and as an employer. So those are some of the traits I've come up with that I think are really important things to work on. I think there's lots of information out there if there's any one particular area. For the practice of presence, I really like Eckhart Tolle's information. He's written many books, The Power of Now, et cetera, et cetera. And he's really all about learning how to be present. For him, it can be a religious experience as well, because that's really about prayer, et cetera. But if you're not religious, it doesn't have to reflect that either. It can be truly just learning how to really be in the moment, not thinking about the next thing that someone's going to say or the thing that someone said before, but really listening and being with that person or with that animal at the time that you are with them, because that's the only thing we have is the current moment. We don't have anything else, and I do really think it really greatly can impact our ability to be great leaders of our practices.
Yeah, and I have a real world experience on that presence part. For me personally, I drive 20 minutes out of my way to go to a private practice because the practice I was going to prior that's closer went corporate recently. Well, I say recently, last 2 years, and I noticed that switch in terms of, and really all seven of these points point towards culture, building a culture, and it's like a real great way of like pinpointing that culture isn't this one over encompassing thing that you like. There are small little things to be doing that all lead to a great culture. And the biggest change I noticed was my doctor that I was seeing, the veterinarian I was seeing, wasn't really present. She was in and out more because there was clearly an emphasis on, get as many invoices in that day, turn and burn, 5-minute appointments, if that, and then move on to the next one, which caused me to move over to a private practice where I am now building a bond with a veterinarian. She takes time, she's present, she answers my questions. And this modern day, with any sort of medicine, not even just veterinary, it's very important to get that information straight from the professional, the DVM. And for a lot of pet owners, the only time we could get those answers are when we're in the exam room with the doctor. So being present in those moments for these pet owners where this is really their time to talk to you and understand the health of their pet and build that bond. And I just really love the breakdown there because, like I mentioned, they're all pointing towards growing an amazing culture within the practice. I mean, it really starts with optimism, right? What is the mindset of not only the owner, but of the entire team? Of course, we've seen clinics just in our years here at Genius Vets where it feels like everybody's burnt out, all the way up to the
Totally.
owner,
Yeah.
all the way down to kennel staff. Like
Yeah.
everybody's just like, oh my gosh. And now you could be intentional. So I'll have these, 7 traits broken out in the description of this video to copy and paste. I highly recommend any practice owner or manager to just have those printed out somewhere. But Dr. Drake, I'm not sure if you would agree with this, but maybe even looking at ways to create like your own traits, right? That kind of goes back to creating core
Yeah.
values and a mission
Yeah.
statement for the clinic. All of those things aren't just nice to haves. They are really the foundation of growing a business is getting everybody on the same page. Everyone knows my core values. Everybody knows my mission statement. We're all in this together. Yeah,
And they
super, super.
understand what those things look like on a day-to-day basis. So it's one thing to write on a piece of paper, but really having your staff, especially younger staff members who've never worked anywhere else before or have very little experience in the workplace, for them to understand what does it mean? Like here, what is this, what is our culture? Our the Drake Center's kindness, respect, teamwork, and fun. Well, what does that mean? What does it look like every day when you walk in the practice? And we talk about it. We share examples. We say, these are the things, and we give kudos to the employees who really show these things in the past month at our staff meetings. So it's constantly talking about it. Also the mission statement. When you talk about having poor morale in office, quite often that staff is not aligned behind a strong mission. They don't know what their values are, and they have a poor culture, and they let some people just really run amok in the practice and create a really bad juju, and there's poor leadership in the practice. Which is so unfortunate because some of these people come here as employees because they want to help animals, they want to help people, and then they're in this icky situation, and you can't do it very well when you're in that situation. So it does require constant work, though, and every now and then you bring an employee in, and you think it's a good choice, and then you realize this person's undermining our culture, and you can try to coach them a couple times, but if it doesn't work, they need to leave the hospital because they will undermine your culture. And those are things as the leaders of the practice, the owners and the managers, we have to be aware of those things because they're key. If we have a strong mission, we cannot provide that great service and care if we don't have a good culture and our team is all aligned behind that and they're well cared for. So, um, all good discussion points here. And again, yeah, pick your own. Like, what are the things that are important to you? But these are the things I just thought of that are especially important for the leadership in the practice. The ability to make decisions, be positive, bring good energy, things like that. And then just the ability to take little bites of all the big issues that you have to deal with on a monthly basis because you're busy, but still you have to work on those things or they will never just happen on their own. So anyway, this was super fun, Sam. I'm glad we were able to make this video and I hope it helps some people and gets their own thoughts. And certainly if anyone has any questions on this or whatever, feel free to, ask Sam and he'll get the question to me and I'll do my best to get an answer to you as soon as possible.
Absolutely. And thank you, Dr. Drake, for taking the time to sit down and just share this amazing knowledge. And look forward to the next one.
Okay. All right, Sam. Thanks so much.